Welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Rate and review the show at kevinmd.com/rate. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/follow. Today on the show, we have Michael Hirsch. He's a gastroenterologist and a physician coach. He wrote the Kevin MD article, Stop Shoulding All Over Yourself. Shoulding is SHOULDING in quotes. Michael, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, Kevin, thank you so much for having me. I just, want to start out by saying you have really created such an incredible platform for physicians. And I just want to thank you for doing that, for highlighting all of the amazing things that all of my colleagues are doing. It's great to kind of learn new things and see what everybody is out there doing. So thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words. And obviously, I wouldn't be able to do what I do without physician contributors like yourself and really just sharing your story and insight. Now, we'll get into your article in a little bit, but for those who don't know you, just please share your story and journey to where you are today.
Yeah. So I had a very traditional path through my medical training, went straight through and finished my training in gastroenterology 13 years ago. I started in a small multi-specialty group. I was the second gastroenterologist in kind of a smaller group that subsequently got bought out by our local community hospital and then taken over by a larger healthcare system. And so my career has kind of spanned a number of different changes and progressions. In addition, I am married and I've got two young children. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And then on top of all of that, had an experience in kind of the medical legal jungle, as I like to refer to it. And I probably was starting to experience some burnout just through the typical growing pains of, building a practice and then successfully building the practice, getting super busy, having so many expectations about when I can see patients and when I can get them in. And then I think that going through the kind of the medical legal stuff, it really just, the burnout was there, but it was like accelerant on the burnout itself, on the flame. And I got through all of that. And then I started feeling like everything was fine, right? I should be happy, right? Everything I've always wanted has come to fruition. I'm a doctor. I've got a busy practice. I've got the wife and the kids and the house is great. And then something just kind of didn't seem right. And I couldn't quite figure out what it is. And so the burnout was there. And I think I just didn't recognize it. Yeah.
So you mentioned about the medical legal jungle. Tell me how that specifically contributed to your burnout.
Yeah, I think that all comes also down to expectations that we are perfect at all times, that we just do everything correctly. And even if we have done everything exactly the way that it's supposed to, the perception of others really weighs heavy on us, right? So we have this idea that not only should we be perfect, but everybody else should also think that we are perfect. And I think that that's where it comes into play, where you can do everything well and everything perfectly, and other people may or may not see it that way.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about that topic and journey in your Kevin MD article. It's titled Stop Shoulding All Over Yourself, and that's SHOULDING in quotes. Now, for those who didn't get a chance to read your article, can you just walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, kind of getting back to the issue of burnout, as I was making my way through my own journey in physician burnout, what I noticed was that there was one overriding theme, and that was expectation, right? They were the expectations I was placing on myself, expectations being placed on me by my patients, by administration. And when I dug into what was underlying, this innocuous word was always there, should, right?
Yeah.
And so what I found was that each time there was an expectation, should, that was just so steeped in kind of what was going on behind the scenes for me. And so in the article, I kind of list out some of the common should statements that we as physicians hear all the time. You should see a certain number of patients every day. Your charts should be closed within a certain amount of time. Your clinic should be between these hours. And then how that then translates to our personal lives as well. You should spend so much time with your children. You should be present for all of the things. And all of those shoulds start to loom large, right? They start to feel very heavy. And so that's where this article was born out of.
So tell me about the weight of all those expectations. You go to work and you say that you should have these certain patient satisfaction scores. You should see this many patients per day or do this many procedures per week. And then you go home and you should spend this much time with your family. Get us a picture about how the weight of all those expectations played on you.
Yeah. So, and this gets into a little bit of the idea of balance, right?
Hmm.
So, we hear all the time people talking about work-life balance, and I wouldn't say this was my idea before coaching, but what coaching has taught me is kind of the idea of life balance, because we separate all of these things. We spend, most of us spend our entire 20s in our medical training, right? It is our life.
Hmm.
And then we get into our 30s and we start building the other aspects of our life, we get married, we have children, and then we want to kind of quarter off this
Hmm.
like work part as if it's not part of our life. And so what I have come to learn was that we need to treat our jobs as part of our life because we've created our lives in that way. But we're so hard on ourselves because we try to say like, oh, work is here now, right?
Hmm.
I've kind of, that's this part. And now I have to balance all of the life stuff. And I think how it was weighing on me was exactly in that way. I was like, oh, work is taking up such a big part. I don't have time for all of these other things that are super important to me. And when I took the pressure off of, oh, work is not my life,
Hmm.
by admitting, well, yeah, I mean, it kind of in many ways is. I created that. This is what I always wanted. And it actually, in a lot of ways, still is. And just by recognizing how much of my life is my work, it took the expectation and the pressure off that I wasn't doing things right,
Hmm.
if you will. Right.
So tell me the steps you took to recognize that, because there are a lot of physicians who are in the exact same position that you described with the weight of expectations, and they just keep working harder, right? But you made a U-turn, you made a change in your life, and recognized, hey, this isn't right for me. I want to make a change. So, was there a specific event that made you change? Was there someone that you talked to that just made you realize this new perspective?
Yeah. So it was definitely a process, right? But I'll tell you what kind of the pivotal moment was, right? So I had seen a lot of the physician coaching stuff popping up. I'll tell you that there's a lot more opportunities for physician coaching. At least I have found for women, right? There are a lot of physician coaches that specialize in coaching female physicians, but there wasn't a ton, at least at the time that I
Hmm.
found it, that was focused or even allowed for men to be involved in coaching. And so, and I'm also, we didn't touch on the fact that I am originally from New York, so steeped with a healthy sense of skepticism and
Hmm.
cynicism. And so when I heard about coaching, I spoke to a prospective coach, and I was not at all convinced. Right, this was not an immediate sell. I wasn't
Hmm.
all in from go. And in my process of saying no to the experience, I was asked one pivotal question, and that was, if you don't do this, then what will change?
Hmm.
Right. And it hit me like a ton of bricks that in order to get to where I wanted to be, I had to do something different. And that was the beginning of what turned out to be kind of the transformation that I never wanted. Right. This was an experience and a transformation that I never wanted,
Hmm.
but I needed.
Sure.
And I never looked back.
So paint us a picture of before and after. So give us a scenario of what you were like before this pivotal moment, and give us a scenario of what you are like now.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, I'm the same person, right? But I think it is how I perceive different situations, right? So frustrations are normal,
Hmm.
right? We all experience them in our day-to-day lives. And this is not to say that coaching got to me to a point where I never get frustrated, I never get overwhelmed, but it's given me new perspective,
Hmm.
right? If I've been away on vacation and that first Monday back where you're just dreading
Hmm.
coming back and what's there, I can tell myself, yeah, that's completely normal, number one. And number two, you've done this before and you've gotten through it before and you're going to get through it today. Right. And so So there's that. And it's also kind of how I deal with when I don't do things the way that I would want to,
Hmm.
right? So if I am frustrated and I don't respond in the way that I wish I had, I ask myself a couple of questions. What did I do well? What could I have done better? And what will I do differently next time?
Sure.
And then I don't beat myself up about it, right? I try to learn from it and I try to move on. And I think all of this, it comes from kind of being curious about why I am doing things the way that I'm doing them with the goal of doing things better next time.
We're talking to Michael Hirsch. He's a gastroenterologist and a physician coach. Michael, what kind of advice do you have for physicians who are in your before state and really suffering under the weight of all these shoulds and expectations?
Yeah. I think just knowing that you have a choice,
Hmm.
right? I think suffering under should is very disempowering, right? You feel like you've given away all of your power to the expectations. And knowing that you have choices and that you can choose to do things any way that you want, I think and knowing that there is power in that choice
Hmm.
is one of the most important takeaways.
And my final question, what are some of your take-home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
Yeah, we are all only here for a limited time, right? This is not a never ending journey. And so figuring out what you want in life, creating that for yourself, and never living in the land of expectations and what you think other people will think. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to look back on your life and wonder, did I live my life to the fullest extent? Did I do things my way?
Hmm.
Right. And you don't want that answer to be no. So now is the time to figure that out.
Michael, thank you so much for sharing your story time and insight. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.